Hello and welcome to Scotland at 7. I am Scott Bevan coming to you live from Glasgow with the news. And tonight we are joined by regular contributor Chris McCusker. Hello,
Good
Chris.
evening, Scott. Yep,
Good
good
evening.
evening. Thanks for inviting me in.
First, we have the coronavirus update. As of 2 pm today, a total of 2,162,310 people in Scotland have been tested through NHS Scotland labs and UK Government regional testing centres since the start of the pandemic. Of these, 1,906,735 have been confirmed negative. 255,575 have tested positive. There are 1,250 new cases of COVID-19 confirmed by a test. Although not everyone with the virus will display symptoms and not all those with symptoms will be tested. There are no new reported deaths of people who have tested positive. The number of patients in Scotland who have died from coronavirus complications caused by the coronavirus COVID-19 infection now stands at 7,692. This number only includes those who have died having received a positive test for the virus in the previous 28 days. Of the people who have tested positive, 158 were in hospital last night, 14 of whom were in intensive care. As of 8 am this morning, 3,647,437 people had received their first dose of the COVID-19 vaccination, and 2,586,970 had received their second dose. The latest UK daily figures show 127,981 patients who tested positive for COVID-19 have sadly died from their illness, an increase of 5 since yesterday. This number refers simply to deaths in all settings, not just in hospitals. To our first story of this evening then, the SQA is to be scrapped under new proposals which will see the retention of the Curriculum for Excellence. The Organisation for Economic Cooperation and Development, OECD, has backed Scotland's school curriculum in its independent review. Education Secretary Shirley Ann Somerville announced that all 12 of the review's recommendations will be accepted in full, including recommendations on curriculum assessment and qualifications, which will see the Scottish Qualifications Authority, SQA, replaced, and Education Scotland substantially reformed. The Scottish Government will actively consider what changes are required to our qualifications and assessment system. This work will be heavily informed by the next OECD report expected in the autumn and by consultation with young people, parents, teachers, and the wider education system. Education Scotland will no longer undertake inspections, with this work becoming a separate, independent role. The Scottish Government will engage widely on the options for the future of inspection. Ms Somerville has said, "The last few years have accelerated the debate about the future of the Curriculum for Excellence and senior phase education in particular. The OECD report is crystal clear. CFE is the right approach for Scotland. The OECD also suggests that the curriculum work currently undertaken by Education Scotland might best sit with any new curriculum and assessment body which will replace the SQA." So, Chris, it appears as though there are some substantial changes coming down the pipeline for our education system.
Yeah, and they're probably welcome changes to the young people at this moment in time, because let's not forget that's who is going to benefit from this, and it's something that opposition parties have been carping on about for a number of years. And it shows that the Scottish Government are actually listening. So, it's all good.
Yeah, Green's education spokesperson Ross Greer has said it's a damning indictment of the SQA. Do you think that's accurate?
Well, I actually tend to agree with Ross on quite a number of issues, and he has been at the forefront of this for the last couple of years, as far as I'm aware. And as I said before, if it's going to benefit our children who, and not saying this in any such way condescending towards your generation, Scott, but it's going to benefit them because they are the future of Scotland. So, the reforms have got to be welcomed.
Yeah, I think it's probably my son's generation that we'll be worrying about now rather than mine. But
That
yeah.
puts me in a bad place.
Yeah, so they've kept the curriculum for excellence. Do you think that that's something that will be welcomed?
Probably not. No, I think the Tories will probably still be jumping up and down because they never bought into the curriculum of excellence in the first place. And let's face it, that's what they do on a regular basis. They carp on the sidelines, grievance politics just for the sake of it. So they won't agree to the colour of you know what. So, but I think wider in the actual chamber, I think it will get support from Labour, obviously, the Green Party. I don't know too much about the Lib Dems, but then they're not really anything to worry about now. So we'll carry on and see where we go.
The UK then has the worst inequality in Northwest Europe. New analysis has revealed that the UK suffers from the worst inequality in Northwest Europe. The analysis from the House of Commons Library reveals the UK has had the worst inequality of any country in Northwest Europe for every year where figures are available in the 21st century. The analysis uses the Gini coefficient. It also reveals that countries with populations similar to or smaller than Scotland are on average far better than the UK and better than the average for all Northwestern European neighbours in terms of equality. The research is supported by previous studies, including a 2016 report by Oxfam, which found that the accumulated wealth of Britain's richest 1% is more than 20 times the total of the poorest fifth, and concluded the UK is one of the most unequal developed countries in the world. In May, an IPPR report revealed the poverty rate among working households in the UK has reached a record high this century, with an increase in relative poverty from 13% of working households in 1996 to 17.4% in March 2020. The report revealed the situation has steadily deteriorated since the Conservatives came to power in 2010, with 1 in 6 working households now living in poverty. It comes as the UK government plans a return to austerity cuts, slashing universal credit payments by £1,040 a year from October and imposing a public sector pay freeze, threatening to entrench poverty and inequality across the UK. Commenting, SNP Shadow Chancellor Alison Thulis said, "The UK is already one of the most unequal countries in the developed world, and Tory austerity cuts will entrench poverty and inequality even further. Scotland is increasingly vulnerable under Westminster control. It's clear that independence is the only way to keep Scotland safe from Tory cuts and build a strong, fair and equal recovery." Alison Thulis there, talking about the Conservatives' planned proposed cuts. Why is it, do you think, that they are continuing to go ahead with cuts even in the midst of this pandemic and given the situation we're currently in with Brexit?
Basically, because the narrative of any capitalist society has to cut its cloth accordingly, and we see it even more so now with the Tories. They are unwilling to drop their vanity projects such as HS2, even Hinkley Point, and 200 million for a yacht that no benefit to the country is ever going to come out of. The splaff the money left, right, and centre just so that he can. That is Boris Johnson I'm talking about. He can appear to be presidential, and it's all for show. It's a tactic that has been deployed by Boris Johnson since he took over from Theresa May, and their bloody mindedness to talk themselves up, needs to be financed. And if that's to the detriment of the rest of the country, then they won't lose any sleepless nights over that whatsoever.
Scotland has one of the lowest mortality rates in Europe as well. Do you think that if there is to be a second independence referendum, then this is something which will be mentioned high on the agenda?
Well, I have to pick you up on that statement there, Scott, because there will be another referendum. There's absolutely no doubt on that. But it shows that the SNP and, to be fair, the Green Party as well in Scotland have been at the forefront of championing social inequality, which Scotland has suffered at the hands of the Tories for the last nigh on 30, 40, 50 years. That line will not drop until Scotland is independent. And as long as there is only two parties in Scotland who are willing to carry that torch, shall we say, then the rest of them, the Tories, Lib Dems, and even the Labour Party, they can all, again, cart from the sidelines about the fact that we're all one nation, but we don't share their vision of a one nation. We have our own vision for our own nation, and that vision is to be in a union that actually benefits the citizens and pays it no detriment whatsoever.
UK government then is having an EU settlement backlog. The Scottish Government's Europe Minister, Jenny Gilruth, has said that there is a backlog of 250,000 applicants by EU citizens who wish to stay in the UK, which the Home Office must address immediately. With thousands in Scotland likely affected by the backlog, it is unacceptable that so many are facing uncertainty about their status. With only a little over a week until the UK government's deadline for applications, Ms Gilruth added, the Scottish Government believes the deadline for applying to the EU settlement scheme should be extended beyond the 30th of June. It also proposed that the UK government should reform its EU settlement scheme to provide more reassurance to EU citizens, and has suggested that EU citizens living in the UK should not need to apply to retain the rights that they had to live, work and study in Scotland. The scheme should be replaced with a system that automatically allows EU citizens to retain their rights. EU citizens should not be required to be residents for 5 years in the UK to receive settled status. Pre-settled status should be replaced with full settled status to reduce anxiety and potential discrimination. Chris, is this all a part of the hostile environment policies of the Conservative government, or do you think it's something that just speaks wider to attitudes within the UK?
Certainly doesn't speak to the wider attitudes of people in the UK. All across the UK, there are EU immigrants, EU settlers that have, decided to make, England, Wales, Scotland their home. And it is a narrative driven again by a very pernicious right-wing Tory party who have zero tolerance to people who have got no recourse to financially support themselves. Now, when I actually point that out, if there was EU immigrant or from somewhere else who was coming to mainland Britain to settle wherever, if they were coming in, say, with a view to setting up just for argument's sake, a blue chip company or something like that, and they had money in the bank, then it appears to me that the Tory party would welcome them with open arms. But when it comes to people that have been displaced through war, through civil crisis, and all the rest of it, the UK has got absolutely no empathy whatsoever. But the majority of immigrants and migrants who come to Scotland actually find that, again, going back to what we were talking earlier about, is the fact that our government has got a totally different attitude towards the rights of its citizens, regardless of their ethnicity or origins. Do have the right to social equality and social cohesion. And that's certainly not the case, south of the border.
Yeah, Scotland does appear to have quite a distinct view from the rest of the UK on this. We saw the actions taken at Kenmure Street to prevent the Home Office from expelling people from this country who'd been here for years. Do you think that there's anything that the Scottish Government can do, even within the bounds of the UK currently, to help mitigate some of this?
Well, again, and I'm not breaking headlines here, but Scotland's very limited in the powers that it has because of Whitehall's monopoly. And the one possible thing that we could do in order to stave it off would be to introduce some sort of health regulation, whereas we could point out that if people are displaced from their homes, it would be detrimental to their health, and in which case, because health has devolved to Scotland, we could use mitigating factors under that sort of like remit. I mean, obviously, I'm not qualified enough to, it's only my personal view, but I would think that if we have some sort of order put out that if people approach the government and state their case on medical grounds, the fact that they shouldn't leave Scotland because they actually fear that their physical health will be put at risk, then maybe that's one way that Scotland can go. But make note, Scotland has to, with the powers that Scotland has got, they have to be cleverer. And I think they have to be more innovative in order to, protect people who actually want, the actual vision that the government put out. That is what they're elected on. And, for the Scottish Government, excuse me, a couple of years ago, allowed the rights of foreign nationals to actually vote in our elections. So I think they should at least, what's the word? They should at least make the moves to repay that trust that the EU nationals put in the Scottish Government, by offering them just that wee bit more protection.
Migrants have repaid the trust that the Scottish people have placed in them, I would say 10 times over. It's an essential component, is it not, for a country the size of Scotland to have quite high levels of immigration?
Well, it has been proved time and time again, Scott, that Scotland depends on inward migration. You only have to look at our hospitality trade. Even if you look at a farming sector, the fisheries sector, they have all been decimated because the inward migration to Britain as a whole has been severely slashed. If you look back only a couple of years ago, you had one Tory MP, God, I can't even remember her name because she's so insignificant, Kirsten Hare. She was bleating about the fact that there would be no one to pick the fruit in her daddy's farms. And that prophecy has actually borne fruit, if you pardon the pun, and came to fruition because there is constantly, day by day, there are stories of farmers telling the newspapers that there is no one available to harvest the fields. So Scotland basks in the fact that we welcome diversity, and it is a two-way street, obviously, and the amount of immigrants that have come over to Scotland and paid into the community through their hard work and through their belief in an equal society has got to benefit the country going forward.
Do you think that this is something where the actions taken by, for instance, organisations like Black Lives Matter in order to take down some of the statues and street names associated with slaveholders of the British imperial past, do you think that's something that will be welcomed by migrants in this country, whatever their nationality?
Well, it's funny that you mentioned that. My comrade, friend, Graham Campbell, has done extensive work on this, and I'm of the firm belief, as Graham is, that the street names should remain, but underneath there should be a description of who the person was, so that people actually understand why the street was named after them. And Scotland needs to gain a bigger understanding of its indulgence in the slave trade, going back through the centuries. Graham and David Heyman done an excellent, I think it was either a 6 or a 9-part series, did I mention, on the BBC. And it is absolutely eye-opening to find the links between the sugar refiners that used to be in Greenock, their connection with the plantations back in Jamaica. You've got the tobacco barons, you've got the cotton lords and stuff like that. People need to, I personally, I don't think there's any argument for renaming these streets. The streets were given their name for a purpose, but we should actually be highlighting that purpose as to what these people were responsible for.
Yeah, I do just about remember when there were sugar houses still left in Greenock. I'm originally from Greenock myself, and Tate and Lyle was still there when I was a boy, and we didn't know anything to do with this in school. We were taught a lot of good history in our schools, Scottish history and everything else, but we were never taught about Scotland's part in the slave trade. Do you think that's something that we need to change?
Oh, without a shadow of a doubt, yes. But even more than that, obviously I'm slightly older than your good self, but when I was at school, and we were taught a basic of Irish history, and we were really not taught anything to do with the likes of British imperialism or anything like that. So when it comes to the likes of the partition of India and even the proposed partition of Ireland, which they tried to cobble together back in 1918 to 1922, which culminated in the assassination of Michael Collins. That was a collusion between what's his name, De Valera, and the British establishment in order to establish the northern part of Ireland, which remained Ulster Unionist, and the rest of Ireland was taken into what we call EIR. But Michael Collins wanted to go the full hog. He wanted the whole island, whereas De Valera was willing to bend the knee as a concession to the British establishment. But I mean, again, we were not extensively taught all that. We were taught the usual sort of like the American Civil War, various things going on in Europe. Obviously, covered the First World War and then the Second World War going on to the Holocaust. But no, it doesn't, dip into those epochs in time. And I think that if there's a wider pool of history for young people to learn upon, then obviously it's going to be to their benefit.
UK-produced film and TV shown in the EU is to be cut post-Brexit. The EU is preparing to act against a disproportionate amount of British television and film content shown in Europe in the wake of Brexit, in a blow to the UK entertainment industry and the country's soft power abroad. The UK is Europe's biggest producer of film and television programming, buoyed up by $1.4 billion from the sale of international rights. But its dominance has been described as a threat to Europe's cultural diversity in an internal EU document seen by The Guardian. The issue is likely to join a list of points of high tension in the EU-UK relationship since the country left the single market and customs union, including disputes over the sale of British sausages in Northern Ireland and the issue of licences in fishing waters, which led to Royal Navy patrol boats being deployed to Jersey earlier this year. Brussels will challenge the continuing definition of British programmes and film as being European works. Under the EU's Audiovisual Media Services Directive, a majority of airtime must be given to such European content on terrestrial television, and it must make up at least 30% of the number of titles on video on demand. Platforms such as Netflix and Amazon. The European Commission has been tasked with launching an impact study on the risk of the EU's cultural diversity from British programming, which diplomatic sources said would be a first step towards action to limit the privileges granted to UK content. Industry figures said a move to define UK content as something other than European, leading to a loss of market share, would particularly hit British drama, as the pre-sale of international rights to shows such as Downton Abbey and The Crown has often been the basis on which they have been able to go into production. Adam Minns, the executive director of the Commercial Broadcasters Association, said selling the international intellectual property rights to British programmes has become a crucial part of financing production in certain genres such as drama. Losing access to a substantial part of EU markets would be a serious blow for the UK TV sector, right across the value chain from producers to broadcasters to creatives. The sale of international rights to European channels and VOD platforms earned the UK television industry $490 million in sales in 2019 to 2020, making it the second biggest market for the UK, behind the US. According to the leaked EU papers entitled The Disproportionate Presence of UK Content in the European VOD Quota and the Effects on the Curriculum and Promotion of Diverse European Works, it is thought necessary for the bloc to reassess the presence of UK content in the aftermath of Brexit. The UK currently provides half of the European TV content presence of VOD in Europe, and the UK works are the most actively promoted on VOD, while the lowest EU27 share of promotion sports is also found in the UK. It was long feared in the industry that the EU would seek to undermine the UK's dominance of the market once the country had left the bloc. Industry sources said they had believed it was a matter of when, not if, with the government appearing to have little leverage over Brussels on this issue. So, Chris, is this something that we could have seen coming? Is it some sort of revenge, do you think, by EU countries for Brexit? Or is this something they always wanted to do anyway, do you think?
I think it's probably something that they always wanted to do. I don't think it's. I don't. I personally don't believe that the EU are as uh, churlish, to sort of like pursue this. It was probably written out in the actual EU withdrawal agreement, and again, it was probably something that Boris Johnson never bothered to read. It doesn't figure up highly in his topic of agenda. So, from that point of view, they would probably just disregard it and hopefully it would go away. But here we are talking about the film and TV industry, and people will be sort of like pricking their ears up and saying, "Oh, what's happening? What's happening now?" Last week we never thought that sausages were going to be a bone of contention, but due to the lack of due diligence done by the UK government, sausages were top of the agenda. So it just goes to show you that the whole Brexit fiasco was undoubtedly going to turn into a whole giant can of worms. It would take possibly years for it to actually unravel. And this is what the unionists use an argument to us, when we're talking about independence, because when we talk about undoing a 300-year-old union, they point out that, well, we've only been collaborating with Europe for over 70 years, and look how difficult it is. If that was the case, then why leave something that was fully functional in the first place? You've only got yourselves to blame. But I mean, this story is particularly disturbing for myself. My eldest son, Kieran, works in the industry, and he's a projectionist at the DCA. And places like the DCA, the GFT, a couple of theatres over in Edinburgh, they heavily rely on European films to be, shown in the cinemas as well. And, it's not three men in a dug that turn up to these events. They're generally well attended. And they normally only run for about a week or a fortnight at a time. So, if that's going to be hampered, then, the people of Britain who give their patronage to these establishments are going to be at a severe disadvantage. Because it's not the same to watch, a classic film noir on your television screen, such like Casablanca or something like that, the 39 Steps. If you're, to actually watch that in the original production layout, where you get the full effect when you're in the cinema, then you can definitely tell a difference. So if that's going to be cut off from us, then I think the British public are rightly going to be outraged about it. But again, it's just a slapdash approach that the Tories have taken to Brexit.
English-speaking programming has been probably the most prominent programming since the start of television, and this has certainly continued into the era of Netflix and Amazon Prime. Do you think that this will see a shift away from that then on a permanent basis in the rest of Europe? Do you think that they will stop watching UK-produced television programmes?
Well, I mean, I can actually throw my memory back to when I was a satellite engineer, and long before the advent of digital platform, which the Sky now operates on. The EU actually operated on a different platform, as in a different satellite platform. So all the European channels were actually carried on a different satellite. And it was only with the advent of digital did they actually take the European content off of one satellite, which was Astra 19.2, and put it onto an actual sort of like global satellite, which is the sky that you watch in your house just now, which is south-southeast. It's 28.2. So and that you can access anywhere from anywhere in the Western world, but the content that they put on 19.2 was predominantly European. So, in layman's terms, if you happen to watch an international football match that was being played in Berlin and it wasn't on the UK platform, you would have to turn your satellite around to the according satellite in order to get it. That was a firm favourite with some of the pubs in Glasgow in order to get the football that wasn't being shown. So this has been done. Platforms have been mutually gained. For both contents to be carried on the one sort of like server, if you like. And because Britain has chose to take itself out of that partnership, it's only right that they protect their own content. And it is again an indication of the greatest act of self-harm that the British establishment can actually inflict on the British citizens.
Carolyn Monaghan MP is proposing a bill to give asylum seekers the right to work. Carol Monaghan will today present a bill in the House of Commons to grant asylum seekers the right to work in the UK, in a bid to overturn the ban imposed by the UK government. Currently, people seeking asylum in the UK are only able to apply for the right to work after they have been waiting for a decision on their asylum claim for over a year. And those then granted such permission are rarely able to work in practice because their employment is restricted to the UK government's shortage occupation list. Many of those seeking refugee status in the UK are living on just £5.39 a day, whilst they wait months or years for a decision on their asylum claim. A report by Lift the Ban Coalition found that 71% of people in the UK agree that people seeking asylum should be allowed to work. In October, a petition with 181,399 people was handed to the Home Office calling for the ban to be lifted. If passed, the SNP MP for Glasgow North West Asylum Seekers Permission to Work Bill would overturn the ban and grant permission to work to asylum seekers who have waited 6 months for a decision on their asylum application. So this is picking up on what we touched on earlier with Scotland's differing attitudes towards migration and, in this case, asylum in the UK and, of course, in Scotland. Do you think that this bill will pass?
Probably not. I don't think it will get consensus in the chamber of the House of Commons. It's a fantastic bill. I've collaborated with Carol on a number of issues with my humanitarian aid hat on. I do work for Eastwood Refugee Aid. We actually go out and help a charity called Care for Calais in France. And the asylum seekers that we meet there are absolutely fascinating because they are bona fide tradespeople. I've met dentists, I've met solicitors, I've met mechanics, bakers, chefs, teachers, you name it. And, while it makes sense to you and I, Scott, that people who are on asylum status should be able to work, that does not fall in line with the UK narrative. and therefore I'm pretty confident to say that the bill will fall. And that is, again, a shocking indictment to the attitude of the UK government towards people who actually want to come here and give in to the community and work towards having a socially equal society that they wish to live in.
The Scottish Government then has said it will learn from its mistakes on harassment complaints and put the interests of those making complaints at the heart of its plan to improve the handling of future issues, according to First Minister Nicola Sturgeon. The First Minister said the Scottish Government's aim is to embed a culture where bullying and harassment is not tolerated and where there is trust in how matters will be handled if things go wrong, as she set out a comprehensive plan to respond to 3 key reports on complaints handling. The plan is part of a single formal response to the reports from Laura Dunlop QC, James Hamilton and the Scottish Parliament's Committee on Harassment Complaints, which covered various aspects of the Scottish Government's complaints procedure and associated issues. Is this something that you think has come about primarily as a result of the complaints against Alex Salmond, Chris?
I think that's obviously one of the issues. I don't think it's the full story. There have been not.
Sorry, Chris, are you there? We appear to be having a couple of technical issues with Chris here just now. That's fine. We will move on to the next story. Moving to the US now, and Senate Democrats are to advance a federal voting rights bill. Democrats in the US Senate this week will attempt to advance legislation setting new national election standards, seeking to counter voting rights rollbacks that Republican legislators are pursuing across the country. Senate Democrats spent the weekend trying to finalise a bill that could win the support of all 50 Democrats and independents in the 100-member chamber, even as Republicans showed no sign of joining an effort that would expand voting by mail and change the way congressional districts are drawn in an effort to prevent them from being designed along partisan lines. If the Democrats' effort splutters this week and no further negotiations succeed, it could allow new restrictive voting rules in some Republican-led states to stand, unless they are struck down in court challenges. But it also could embolden Democrats to try to scrap or modify the Senate's long-standing filibuster rule, requiring 60 votes to advance most legislation. Such a move could leave Republicans powerless if the Senate's 48 Democrats and 2 independents stick together. Given that Vice President Kamala Harris has the power to break 50-50 ties, Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer has scheduled a procedural vote for Tuesday to let the Senate begin debating an election reform bill. As Senate Republicans are planning to withhold their support, Schumer is unlikely to get the 60 votes needed to begin debate on a bill. The Democratic-led push for federal voting rights legislation comes as Republican legislators in politically pivotal states such as Georgia, Florida, and Iowa passed sweeping voting restrictions. Democrats and voting rights advocates have sued state officials over the new laws, saying they will disproportionately disenfranchise voters of colour who helped propel Democratic President Joe Biden to victory in last November's election. We are joined once again by Chris. Sorry, Chris, we were speaking there about the Democrats trying to stop the Republicans from essentially gerrymandering their seats and introducing new electoral legislation. This is something, of course, that has parallels with what the Conservatives are trying to do here in the UK with redrawing the boundaries, doesn't it?
Yeah. Rejoining the conversation here, the boundaries, what they're proposing to do in Britain is to actually increase the amount of MPs in Westminster, while decrease the amount of representation in Scotland.
Yeah.
But it's it's a bit bizarre to find that this has been replicated in America, and drawing the comparisons between the two. I would have thought that Biden would have, uh, sort of like prioritized this to sort of like stamp it out, before it grew arms and legs.
EU measures are to tighten the thumbscrews on Belarus. The European Union has imposed travel bans and asset freezes on 86 Belarusian people and companies today, with economic sanctions that Austria said would tighten the thumbscrews on President Alexander Lukashenko's outrageous actions. Outraged at the forced landing of a Ryanair passenger plane in Minsk on May the 23rd to arrest a dissident journalist, EU foreign ministers will blacklist transport, defence and air traffic officials. With Lukashenko so far impervious to foreign pressure, EU states are also soon set to impose economic sanctions on Belarus's financial, oil, tobacco and potash sectors after a provisional deal was agreed on Friday. The economic sanctions still need to be finalised to withstand any court challenges, and EU leaders are set to discuss giving political approval at a summit on Thursday. Restrictions on the Belarusian financial sector are set to include a ban on new loans, a ban on EU investors from buying bonds on the primary market, and a ban on EU banks from providing investment services. EU export credits will also end, although private savings will not be targeted. Securities in circulation and traded between fund managers are not expected to be hit, but sanctions on the secondary market could come at a later stage. The EU will ban exports to Belarus of any communications equipment that could be used for spying and tighten an arms embargo to include rifles used by biathletes. Are these appropriate responses, do you think, Chris?
Oh, undoubtedly. And I think more could be done as well. Lukashenko's he's a tin pot dictator who is enjoying the protection of Vladimir Putin, and but he's only getting that protection as long as he is beneficial to Putin, and once they've had enough of him, then he'll be dropped. Dare I say, like a hot potato. So I think it's, to my mind, it's only right that the EU consider more wide-ranging sanctions, tougher sanctions against him, because he seems to not have any conscience, when it comes to the rights of his own citizens, and continues to carry on with complete impunity. The audacity of hijacking an aircraft, especially a commercial aircraft such as the Ryanair flight, just shows how he does not really consider his actions to be anything that anybody should raise their eyebrows about, where the rest of the Western world obviously are horrified at the fact that an aircraft can be taken out of the sky, with such ease. So they have to, put these sanctions in place, which is directly going to have an impact on how he is able to operate his government, and I think it's only right. Yeah.
Currently, trade is being affected, but as mentioned, the savings of private individuals, and by this particularly mean rich private individuals, are not being targeted. Do you think that targeting that might have some sort of an impact in forcing the hand of the government to change their positions on things like this?
It's definitely something that they could consider, but there are. It's I think it would be wrong to. Well, I think it would be a generalisation to say that if you're going to be targeting the high earners, then that wouldn't have obviously an impact on the low earners as well.
Absolutely.
So they have to consider each sanction on merit, and not just did I use the analogy of a scattergun. Just not sort of like rush in with all guns blazing and stuff like that. Everything has to be properly thought through before actually being enacted.
To sport then. Scotland midfielder Billy Gilmour has tested positive for COVID-19. Gilmour will now be required to isolate for the next 10 days. In a statement on Monday, the Scottish Football Association said the Scottish FA can confirm that a member of the Scotland national team playing squad, Billy Gilmour, has tested positive for COVID-19. Having liaised with Public Health England since the positive test was recorded, Billy will now self-isolate for the next 10 days and therefore miss tomorrow's UEFA Euro 2020 Group D match against Croatia. The news raises concerns over the health of the squad and comes as a blow to the Scotland men's national team, particularly as Gilmour was considered one of their strongest performers in Friday's 0-0 draw against England. Scotland require a win against Croatia to stand any chance of progressing to the knockout stages of the championship. So this news then coming to the Scotland team, do you think it will have an impact on our chances tomorrow?
It will. It's a severe blow to the setup that the Scotland team are currently enjoying at the moment. I can't help think the cynic in me probably says that Health England have actually selected Billy Gilmour out for special treatment because he caused immeasurable problems to the England team on Friday night. But we've got replacements, such as, I don't mean to tell Clarkey how to run his team, but there are a number of replacements that Scotland could slot into that position. It looks good for Scotland at this moment in time, and one man is never the whole sum of the team. With Robertson and Tierney hopefully being COVID free, and that said, the rest of the team being COVID free, then we've got every chance. But it all depends on the team's attitude at the kickoff, and I think they'll probably want to get a result for young Gilmour because he's got a promising career, ahead of him, and to go out of the competition at this time just down to one COVID case, I think would be, a devastating blow for the country. But I wish him all the best. He's a fantastic talent, and I was particularly enjoying the cheesy grin on Ali McCoy's face when people were sort of like grinding their teeth, shall we say, in the English media about the fact that they didn't manage to take 3 points from us.
The atmosphere was electric in Glasgow and across Scotland last weekend when we faced off against England. Do you think the atmosphere will be similar this time, or do you think that it's an insurmountable challenge that we have? We have to probably win by a couple of goals or hope that England win by quite a number in order to qualify.
Yeah. I've been given the myriad of permutations that could possibly affect us. I was at Glasgow Green on Friday. I can tell you the atmosphere was absolutely brilliant. And if I've got a spare minute, I could actually point out that the event was 100% well run. I was really impressed by just how well it was actually done and put on. The atmosphere was absolutely outstanding. So fair play to the organisers for that. But yeah, no, I mean, if Scotland are capable of scoring, any other night on Friday there, we could have at least 1 out of 3 goals. And it's just having that wee bit of luck, just to get you through. And England's keeper was on form. England's defence were resolute. They didn't offer anything going forward. I think they probably had maybe a couple of shots, one off the post. Thankfully, that didn't go in. I think there was quite a lot of people shouting for CPR at that point in time. But on their day, anything's possible. So and as I say, we've got a wealth of talent in the Scotland team now that that hopefully the absence of Gilmour will not impact the team too much.
We never do it the easy way, do we?
No, never do.
And finally then, children will play for free at historic sites this summer in Scotland. Under 16s will go free at historic Scotland sites this summer as part of a Scottish Government campaign supporting well-being in young people affected by the impact of the ongoing pandemic. With summer 2021 seeing a rise in staycations due to continuing uncertainty around foreign travel caused by COVID-19 virus, the Get Into Summer programme will provide children and young people with opportunities to enjoy the best of Scotland's heritage from June the 26th until August the 17th. Although free places must be reserved with tickets bookable via Historic Environment Scotland, all under 16s must be accompanied by an adult. The initiative is supported by $143,000 from the Scottish Government, part of a wider $20 million funding package allocated to councils and other partnership organisations to help children and young people impacted by the social effects of COVID by creating opportunities to socialise, play and reconnect this summer. To add to the fun and ensure everyone has an opportunity to take part, Historic Environment Scotland is also working closely with partner organisations to provide extra support for families and young people during the summer holidays. This will include distributing thousands of free Playing with the Past activity packs to encourage imaginative play inspired by Scotland's castles. I will bear that in mind when I go on holiday to Edinburgh and St Andrews later next month with my son. So that wraps up this evening's news then. Once again, we must mention that we can only do what we do here at Broadcasting Scotland thanks to your support and your generous donations. So if it is within your power in any way to help us out, then please do consider contributing financially to Broadcasting Scotland. Until next time, I have been Scott Bevan. I will still be Scott Bevan on Wednesday when I'm back with you. And thank you for watching.
How do you mean no more commission?
Well, no one in Scotland can commission an idea. You know, if I went to BBC Scotland and I said, oh, I've got this great idea for a sitcom, I've got this brilliant idea for a drama, you know, there isn't one person in Scotland that can okay it unless it goes through London.
Good morning and welcome to another edition of Full Scottish. What's happening today?
Hello and welcome to the Full Scottish here on Broadcasting Scotland.
Scotland is going to be an independent country.
That need, that desire for independence is ever stronger than perhaps it was in 2014. So there's an obligation that we've got to give leadership to that campaign. That's what Nicola Sturgeon, as our First Minister, has been doing.
My feeling about Boris Johnson is he can't be trusted on anything.
That is now and forever will be known as the rape clause.
I'm old enough to remember going into Europe in 73, and I remember how much of a razor's edge that was a battling stone. And I think we made it by 53%, if I remember correctly, for going in. And ever since that time, England particularly has been pretty much schizophrenic, down the middle about whether it felt British or whether it felt European. And that schism, that crack has remained throughout English society ever since.
Scotland means business. Scotland's voice won't be stilled, it won't be silenced, it has to be heard.
The work that's been done by Broadcasting Scotland in giving community activists, yes activists, Scottish activists a platform other than the traditional media outlets.